Level 1. The dropout moment. 5 years. 5 years of drafting tables. All-nighters with a ruler in one hand and cold coffee in the other. You graduate. You frame the degree. You hang it on the wall of your rented studio apartment. Then you sit down for your first job interview. Junior architect. Entry salary. 11-hour days. A senior partner who hasn't smiled since 2019. You take the job anyway. What else were you supposed to do? 3 months in, you're rendering someone else's vision. Someone else's name on the blueprint. Your hands did the work. Your name appears nowhere. You start watching YouTube videos at 1 a.m. to fall asleep. Not architecture videos. Story videos. Faceless channels. A robotic voice reading something dramatic over stock footage. You think, this is nothing. I could make this in an afternoon. You don't sleep that night. You open a blank document instead. You write 400 words. You find a text-to-speech voice. You search for free stock footage of city skylines, like the ones you used to sketch by hand. You upload the video at 2:47 a.m. Title, a question, a hook, nothing special. You close the laptop. You go to work the next morning like nothing happened. 3 days later, you check the channel out of boredom during your lunch break. 200 views. It's nothing. It's pocket change in numbers. But your hands are shaking. Because for the first time in 5 years, something you made, alone at 2 a.m. for free, reached more people than anything you'd built with a team, a budget, and a degree. That's level 1. You don't know it yet, but you just opened a door you can't close. Level 2, the second video. You tell yourself it was a fluke. You make a second video anyway. This time you're more careful. You study the thumbnail. You study the first 8 seconds, the part where most viewers leave. You write the hook 5 times before you're satisfied. You still go to work every day. You still sit through 11-hour shifts, sketching elevations for buildings you'll never see finished. But now your mind is somewhere else. You're mentally drafting the next script during lunch. You're thinking about pacing during client meetings. Your boss notices you're distracted. He doesn't know why. The second video gets 800 views. Then something happens you didn't expect. A comment, a real person, a stranger typing, "This made me feel something." You read it 4 times. You realize people don't watch for the topic. They watch for the feeling. For the voice that sounds like it knows something they don't. You start studying retention graphs instead of structural load calculations. You start staying up past midnight, cutting clips, adjusting pacing, deleting sentences that don't pull weight. Your apartment changes. The drafting table gets pushed to the corner. A cheap microphone appears on your desk. A ring light. A laptop running editing software you taught yourself in a weekend. You tell no one at work, not your coworkers, not your parents who paid for your tuition. If this fails, no one needs to know it happened. If this works, you're not sure what happens then. The channel hits 1,000 subscribers in 6 weeks. It's small. It's nothing to anyone else. To you, it's proof. That's level 2. The moment a hobby starts asking for more of you than you plan to give. Level 3, the first paycheck. 2 months in, you get an email. YouTube Partner Program, monetization approved. You stare at the screen. You read it 3 times to make sure it's real. Your first payout isn't life-changing. It's groceries. It's 1 month of rent, maybe 2 if you're careful. But it's money you made from nothing. No client, no senior partner taking the credit, no firm logo above your name. Just you, a microphone, a document full of sentences you wrote at midnight. You start treating it like a second job, because it is one. Wake up. Architecture firm, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Come home. Eat standing at the counter. Write scripts until 1 a.m. Repeat. Your sleep drops to 5 hours a night. You don't notice yet. You're too high on momentum to notice anything. You start outsourcing pieces you can't do well. A voice actor instead of your own flat TTS reads. A simple editor template instead of fighting with software every night. The channel grows faster. 10,000 subscribers. Then 20. You start getting messages from brands, small ones. A sponsorship offer for less money than you'd hoped, but it's still a brand willing to pay you. An architecture school dropout in progress with a faceless channel and a robotic voice. You say yes. You don't tell your parents. You don't tell your coworkers. You tell yourself this is temporary, a side thing, a safety net. You don't believe yourself anymore, but you keep saying it. That's level 3. The moment money turns a hobby into a decision you have to keep making every single day. Level 4. The quiet resignation. 6 months in, the math stops making sense. The channel is making more in a slow month than your entry-level architecture salary makes in 2. You start doing calculations during boring client calls. Rent, software subscriptions, editor fees, channel revenue minus expenses. The number keeps landing in your favor. You walk into your manager's office on a Tuesday morning. You've rehearsed the resignation line in the mirror 3 times. He asks why. You say personal reasons. He doesn't ask again. Architecture firms lose junior staff all the time. You're not the first. You won't be the last. You walk out of that building for the last time and you don't look back at it. For the first time in your adult life, you have no boss. No senior partner correcting your lines. No 9-to-5 clock controlling your day. It feels like freedom. It also feels terrifying. Because now there's no salary cushioning the channel's bad weeks. Now the channel isn't a side project. It's the only income you have. You start working 12, 14 hours a day, scripting in the morning, editing in the afternoon, studying analytics at night like a man studying enemy movements. You move to a cheaper apartment to extend your runway. You tell people you're freelancing in design. Easier than explaining a robotic voice reading stories about strangers' lives to thousands of people who don't know your face. The channel crosses 100,000 subscribers. You should feel triumphant. Instead, you feel something colder. You feel responsible to the channel, to the algorithm, to a number that, if it ever drops, takes your rent with it. That's level 4. The moment freedom and fear become the same feeling. Level 5, the formula. By month 9, you've found it, the formula. You know exactly which hook keeps people past the 8-second mark. You know exactly how long a pause should last before a reveal. You know which words make people comment, which titles make people click at 11 p.m. when they can't sleep. You stop writing like an artist, you start writing like an engineer, which you realize is exactly what your 5 years of training prepared you for. Load-bearing sentences, structural pacing. You just didn't know the building would be made of attention instead of concrete. Your upload schedule becomes brutal. 3 videos a week, sometimes 4. You hire a second editor, a scriptwriter to help with volume. You're not a creator anymore. You're running a small company. Just one that lives entirely inside a laptop with no office, no name on a door, no face on a thumbnail. Money starts arriving in numbers that don't feel real. More in a month than your architecture firm paid in a year. You buy things you don't need. A better chair, a second monitor, a vacation you take but spend half of editing on your phone because a video is underperforming and you can't relax until you fix it. You start to notice something uncomfortable. You haven't opened your old architecture software in 4 months. You haven't sketched anything by hand in longer than that. You tell yourself you'll go back to it eventually. As a hobby, when things calm down, things don't calm down. They never do once money starts moving like this. That's level 5. The moment the system you built starts running you instead. Level 6. The copycats and the copyright strike. Success invites company, not the kind you want. Other channels start copying your formula. Same hook style, same pacing. Some of them even reuse phrases pulled almost word for word from your scripts. At first it stings, then it scares you. Because some of those channels are growing faster than you did, using a system you built from nothing. You start watermarking scripts, changing structure every few weeks so you're harder to copy. Then the email arrives that every faceless creator dreads. Copyright claim. A piece of stock footage you used months ago, cleared through a license you thought was airtight, gets flagged anyway. The video is demonetized overnight. Not your best video, your best performing one. The one responsible for almost a third of last month's income. You spend 2 days buried in dispute forms, emails to footage libraries, screenshots of license agreements. You win the dispute eventually. But the video stays demonetized for 3 weeks while it processes. You feel something you haven't felt since architecture school. Powerlessness. A platform's algorithm and a faceless claim system deciding your income, the same way a senior partner once decided whether your designs ever saw daylight. You start backing up everything. licenses, scripts, raw footage. You build folders like a man building an emergency exit. The channel survives. It even grows past the dip. But something in you doesn't trust the ground anymore. You realize the platform that made you doesn't owe you anything. Not loyalty, not warning, not mercy. You're not an employee here. You're not even really a partner. You're a tenant in someone else's building, and the landlord can change the locks anytime he wants. That's level 6, the moment you understand how much you don't control. Level 7, the empire. A year and a half in, the channel becomes something else entirely. 500,000 subscribers. A second channel in a different niche, started purely to diversify risk. A spreadsheet tracking revenue across both, color-coded like a financial model your old firm never trusted you enough to build. You hire a small team, an editor, 2 scriptwriters, a thumbnail designer who's better at hooks than you ever were. You stop writing every script yourself. You become an editor of other people's drafts, a director instead of an actor. It's strange. You studied 5 years to design buildings for other people's names. Now you run a small, invisible studio under your own name that nobody recognizes, making content that millions of strangers consume and forget within a day. The income is the kind your parents wouldn't believe if you showed them the numbers. The kind that buys a small apartment outright. The kind that makes architecture's starting salary look like a rounding error. But the cost is quieter than the income. You haven't taken a full day off in 5 months. Every notification feels like it could be good news or bad news, and your stomach drops before you even check. You catch yourself more than once missing the simplicity of level 1. One script, one upload, no team depending on your decisions, no algorithm to read like a fortune teller every single morning. Power has a weight to it. Nobody tells you that part until you're already carrying it. That's level 7. The moment you realize you built something bigger than you, and it doesn't ask permission before it changes your life. Level 8, the crash. Then the algorithm shifts. It happens quietly first. Views dip 10%. You tell yourself it's normal fluctuation. Then 20%. Then 40%. A platform-wide change to how the algorithm favors certain formats. Faceless, narration-heavy channels like yours across the board lose reach overnight. Not because you did anything wrong, because the ground moved. You watch a year and a half of consistent growth flatten into a downward line in under 3 weeks. Revenue follows the views, not gently, a cliff, not a slope. You still have a team depending on paychecks you committed to before any of this happened. You still have rent on an apartment you bought based on income that no longer exists at the same scale. Panic does something to your thinking that calm money never did. You chase trends instead of building your own format, the exact mistake you used to warn your scriptwriters against. You upload more, hoping volume saves you. It doesn't. Quality drops. Audience trust drops with it. For the first time since you quit architecture, you open your old portfolio. You look at the buildings you once sketched. None of them were ever built. But they still exist on paper the way you designed them. Nobody can demonetize a drawing. Nobody can shift an algorithm under a blueprint. You sit with that thought for a long time. You don't go back to architecture. Not really. Too much time has passed. Too much identity is built into the channel now. But you do something you haven't done in over a year. You slow down. You cut your team to what you can actually sustain. You return to writing scripts yourself, the way you did at level 1 at 2 a.m., with nothing to lose because you had nothing yet to protect. The channel stabilizes, smaller than its peak, steadier than its peak ever was. You learn the lesson late, the way most people learn the expensive ones. Growth without a foundation is just height waiting to fall. You spent 5 years learning to build things that last. It took losing almost everything in 3 weeks to remember why that mattered. The channel keeps running today, smaller, slower, built this time on something closer to the ground. You don't know if it lasts another 5 years, but for the first time since you quit your old job, you're not afraid to find out.